As part of TiMS midterm webinar, Eva-Maria Jernsand, Helena Kraff, and Emma Björner presented the TiMS project in brief, discussed preliminary findings, and shared some thoughts on the work ahead. In TiMS, we aim to explore the role of tourism in multicultural societies, act for inclusion, and promote representation of diversity. We are researchers from different universities representing diverse disciplinary fields from human data technology, marketing, design, tourism studies, and migration ethnic studies. We collaborate internationally and nationally with different academic institutions and practitioners with an ambition to incorporate diverse perspectives on inclusive tourism and place branding. Our starting point is that inclusive tourism and place branding have the potential to strengthen relationships, contribute to intercultural exchanges, and create multidimensional destinations. But we also see that these ethical ambitions need further investigation in terms of concept development and studies of practice. Our studies focus on representation, communication, experience, participation, and facilitation. These are the 3 work packages and 9 cases that we work with in TiMS. Work package 2 is about multiple identities in place branding and sustainable tourism destinations. In this work package, we study how the plurality of places and destinations is communicated, represented, and experienced. Work package 3 is about multiculturalism and participation in sustainable tourism and place development. The cases are on guided tours, events, and physical and built environments. Finally, Work Package 4 is about tourism as facilitator of integration and plurality in sustainable societies. The cases are on tourism agencies, visiting friends and relatives tourism, and on ethnic networks. We will now give short presentations of some of the work we have carried out so far and share some thoughts about the work we have ahead of us.
Hello everyone, I'm Eva-Maria and I will first give you a short description of Dalslånged, West Sweden, which is one of the places for our fieldwork and an important one for mine and the coming presentations. The population is around 1,500 or 2,400 including its close surroundings. Dalslånged lies by a canal with a famous old aqueduct and locks, attracting tourists for nature and cultural experiences. Since the village is located by the water energy source, it has a history in the groundwood, pulp, paper mill, and horseshoe nailing industries. And although many of the old pulp and paper industries have closed down, the village is still characterized and influenced by its history of wood and metal, not least in the design and crafts educations with artistic focus. The student community is about 200 with people from all over the world in constant circulation. Many students stay after their studies to make their earnings through design and craft work, joining an increasing number of residents with artistic aspirations. Furthermore, especially as a result of the influx of refugees to Sweden in 2015, people have moved to the village, mainly from Syria. It means a diverse body of people permanently or temporarily live here and visit the place as tourists, which is interesting for the cases, and also the Swedish tradition of collaborative governance and public trust and the importance of local NGOs and other small actors in rural areas makes this an interesting case. Can you switch, Sayaka? Thank you. So I will talk about the literature review and a case example of knowledge integration in tourism, which we are working on. The study gives a perspective of tourism management as interdependent on place development at large. And in literature, it's argued that tourism management is the linking of policy and planning with social and environmental goals into concrete guiding principles that build resilient systems and communities, as well as high quality tourism products. It is also argued that it's about providing space for collaboration and knowledge creation. And as DMOs are moving from destination marketing organizations towards destination management organizations, it's argued that they need to take part in political processes and collaborate with other instances of the public sector. Next. Knowledge management is a well-developed and mature field of research. However, tourism has been quite slow to embrace it. The concept was formed under the principles of the knowledge-based economy, that knowledge is a valuable resource that needs to be transferred and used. Knowledge is considered a social and cultural process, which only becomes explicit when individuals are motivated to share experiences and use collective knowledge. Knowledge is embedded not only in single tourism organizations, but in networks, localized in destinations, or based in research. And connected to knowledge is the movement towards the social inclusion and social innovation, which further emphasize an integrative approach to tourism development and management. In tourism literature, new concepts emerge, or reconceptualizations of earlier notions, which challenge dominant power relations and top-down approaches. As you have heard us talk about earlier today, the concept inclusive tourism has expanded not to include not only accessibility for people with functional variations, but the more general inclusion of marginalized groups, and that these groups should be able to take part in both production and consumption of tourism products. And from a place and destination branding perspective, inclusiveness means that people living in tourism destinations should be represented, not only in marketing campaigns, but in the interpretations, ideas, and formulations of what the place is about. So in short, tourism is moving towards inclusiveness in different forms. However, overarching studies on how knowledge should be managed are lacking. Next, yeah. So we argue that tourism management has a lot to learn from nearby fields of knowledge. Here I have some examples from other fields that are often involved in citizen participation and dialogue. In architecture and urban planning, participation often revolves around engaging citizens in the development of their neighborhood. Participation is viewed as a means for deepening democracy. And in design, participation builds on principles of emancipation, empowerment, partnership, and mutual learning, and the idea that those who may be affected by a development process have the right to be included. And in development studies, researchers claim there is a lack of ethical guidelines and standards for how people should be involved. So now I will give the example of a project in Dals Långed, where several actors were involved in the building of a park with a sauna, a vegetable garden, a barbecue area with kitchen, and an adventure trail. And I start from the initiation of this project. Here are two citations from one of the initiators who claim the project having a bottom-up process. He says that it's not just about the municipality coming with heavy equipment and doing something they decided to do, but you can have this direct relationship with the way that public spaces are developed in the communities. And about the invitations to the project, he acknowledges the importance of having local organizations on board from the start. And you can put up posters everywhere and hope that people will come. But I think it was really important that the NGO is a very active local organization that is run by some very respected people in the local society. And during the park project process, there were several public community meetings with idea generation and presentations of possible solutions. There was also a workshop with children from the nearby elementary school. And also in the construction phase, they invited people to join. And the final stage of this project was the inauguration of the park, which was successful in the sense that a lot of people took part of the ceremony, not least the funders. And it is, of course, important to have funding for a project like this. The local development NGO and the course organizers collaborated and received funding for the project from the regional authorities, the municipality organization, and a scholarship from a private foundation. And also a lot of voluntary work, of course. And an important part is also responsibility of taking care of the park afterwards. And this was secured by the local development NGO. And having all these funding bodies, you can become less dependent on local authorities and broaden the possibilities of getting funding in the future. However, representative of an NGO says that the economic aspect is important, but there is something else here in play that is not about selling stuff. This is about creating and developing a society. And the CEO of the province DMO also emphasized the collaboration between actors and said, we work widely in collaboration with the cultural life, the municipalities, and the business community. It is important that companies remain and that people want to live here. And the final citation is from a Swedish student in the park project who had lived in Dalslånged for about 5 years. And she claimed the place is different since there is such good collaboration and short distance between ideas and implementation. People want to help everybody here, she said. They are super excited about everybody else's ideas. So the major implications of this article we're writing are that inclusiveness goes beyond public-private partnerships. It means that various instances here in the forms of a school, as well as smaller units such as community-based organizations and individual residents, can and should be strategically involved. Further, inclusion is not only about resident consultation or them being able to consume tourism products, but an integrated perspective on knowledge and development. There are available educations, recommendations, guidelines, and laws regarding citizen consultation and dialogue, for example, in urban planning. And these are rarely used in tourism and place branding, so they could be seen as untapped opportunities. And we should not neglect that there is a lot for other fields to learn from tourism and place branding, for example, on image and identity, on tourism policy and planning, on tourism experiences, tourism impacts, for instance. So there is interdependency on different levels, which we should see as opportunities to become more inclusive. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Eva-Maria. So I will now continue. My name is Helena, and I will now turn to a case where we explore the possibilities for intercultural exchange through events. And here we have a particular focus on food events. And there are many examples to be found. We have heard about a few already, where companies, NGOs, cities, and municipalities conduct events that offer food from different food cultures. And these often have a more or less explicit aim to get people to meet and gain insights into cultures other than one's own. And they can take many shapes and sizes, and they can be built around a theme. They can be organized as a market or as co-creative event where the guests and host cook food together. And within TiMS, we have cases in Dalslånged, which Eva-Maria have just talked about, Gothenburg, as well in Kisumu. And I will talk about the Swedish cases today. Thanks. And the first examples that I have is an event in Dalslånged, Steneby, which we as researchers co-created with local actors. The initiative for the event came from myself and Eva-Maria, as we knew that Dalslånged is highly multicultural in its composition. There are also many creative entrepreneurs who arrange events that are open for community members. So in other words, there is a willingness to create meetings within the community. And the idea was to create an event that gathers some of the different food cultures that are present in the community, as well as to explore opportunities for local entrepreneurs to widen their networks. So we met with 3 entrepreneurs in December 2019, and they had been asked to bring a spice or a food that meant something to them, to spark a conversation around food and food memories. And these spices, as well as the fact that this was the darkest month in Sweden, led to the co-created event Steneby Midwinter Solstice. And the space for the event was Långed Park, which Eva-Maria presented about just now. And it was marketed as an opportunity for people to meet during the darkest time of the year and to celebrate the coming of brighter days. On arrival, guests were treated with warm apple cider with references to the English wassailing tradition, which is a request for a successful apple harvest the coming year. Guests could also make edible Christmas tree decorations for the birds to eat, which also nodded to the wassailing tradition. They were then able to warm themselves with Syrian fowl, a dish with hot beans, and they could grill saffron buns. And saffron buns are normally eaten in Sweden before Christmas, and they could take this together with a cup of Arabic coffee. And I now turn to another case run by a social enterprise, Ticket Community-Based Tourism, who we have with us today as well. In Gothenburg is their base. And as part of their work towards inclusive tourism, they arranged a course for labor market integration. And most participants of this course were immigrants in the process of finding a job in Sweden. And as part of the course, participants, in collaboration with the course organizers, as well as us as researchers, developed concepts for planned and conducted food events. The events have been based on, for example, Eritrean food cultures, and the image that you see here are from a Christmas market where cookies with connection to Congolese, Swedish, and Syrian food cultures were packaged in a bag of assorted cookies and accompanied with recipes. So analyzing these events, we can see that there are opportunities for positive outcomes. Food events can create a foundation for intercultural exchange as it provides initial insights to other cultures. It can also act as springboards for entrepreneurs. And one of the participants from the midwinter solstice events runs a catering business focusing on Syrian food, and she can make contact with new clients after participating in the event. And from the case in Gothenburg, the participants in the course have mentioned an increase of self-confidence when they see their own ideas and food being appreciated as tourism products. There are, however, despite the opportunities, a need to acknowledge the criticism that have been aimed towards multicultural efforts of different kinds. Organizations, cities, and destinations have been criticized for using the concept of diversity and multiculturalism to market themselves as socially responsible, even though there may be no real organizational change in the structures. So this indicates the existence of a shallow interpretation of multiculturalism, and it also shows the importance to always aim to embrace it at deeper levels. And a single event may create a foundation for intercultural exchange, but for it to happen at deeper levels, there is often a need for continuous interaction over time. And this could be seen, for example, in the course for labor market integration in Gothenburg, in which intercultural exchange emerged as the participants and course organizers continuously worked together. So another aspect that we need to critically investigate is the packaging and branding process of events, as this is a space where the will to package it into a cohesive and marketable product may lead to an overemphasis on cultural difference. And this is also where we can take the opportunity to critically explore our own roles as co-creators of events. For example, how our own worldviews and perhaps implicit prejudice may affect the event, in particular, if we do not include all cultures in the concept of the multicultural. And tourism festivals and events are often in literature used to exemplify shallow interpretations of multiculturalism. And this indicates a need to base tourism effort that aims to embrace diversity on discussion, knowledge, and critical awareness. So knowledge is, for example, important regarding what type of actions it is that can lead to shallow interpretations and how they in turn can lead to discrimination. And this includes insights regarding, for example, historically uneven power relations between majority and minority cultures, and the negative forces in processes of othering. Also, the criticism that is aimed at multiculturalism can be seen as an opportunity within tourism, as it can be used by tourism stakeholders as a lens through which implicit prejudice and other issues can be dealt with and exposed. In other words, we can use the criticism as a tool for reaching more sophisticated and deeper approaches of multiculturalism. And I think this was the last slide concerning events, and we will now listen to Emma, who will present about branding of places and destinations.
Thank you so much, Helena and Eva-Maria. In one of our work packages, in work package 2, we focus on how the plurality of places and destinations is communicated, represented, and experienced. We study the images and language used in tourism promotion and destination branding. We also look into the branding process, including visions, strategies, and management. And this means that we are very much interested in the imagery and language communicated, what the branding process looks like, and what the related management and strategies are. So far, we have studied the branding of some different places and destinations. We have focused on both the local level and the small town of Dals-Långed, like Eva-Maria and Helena mentioned, the regional level and the region of Skåne, and the national level and Sweden. Great, thank you, Sayaka. On the local level, we study the branding of the small town, Dals-Långed. In this study, we align with a stakeholder-centric approach that more and more is gaining ground in place branding and tourism development. This approach very much downplays the role of resourceful branding authorities and instead regard them as only one among many different stakeholders or actors that together form the place brand. In the case of Dals-Långed, we find that a plurality of actors or authors create a collection of narratives and contribute to the forming of the culture, identity, and brand of the place. As such, our study provides an understanding of place branding as an organic and bottom-up process that involves a plurality of actors and narratives that together form the place brand. We also study the role of curators and social media influencers in the branding of places and destinations, and we do this within 2 different studies. In one study, we focused on the project Curators of Sweden, launched by Visit Sweden and the Swedish Institute in an attempt to create a multifaceted image of Sweden as a nation and destination by the help of different curators posting their own stories on the official Swedish Twitter account for a week at a time. In another study, we focus on social media influencers' role in shaping the brand of Skåne and Sweden, especially when it comes to social sustainability and inclusivity. We zoom in on pink tourism and tourists' contribution to local communities and tie this to Sweden's focus on being open and progressive. Both these studies can be tied to the larger context of the increased digitalization of destinations that we very much see today. It can also be tied to the notion of trust, that trustworthy communication is communicated through others' content via others' channels, and especially influencers and digital word of mouth. Last year, we also began following and studying a sustainability initiative led by Visit Sweden. A central aim of this initiative is to brand and develop Sweden as a sustainable destination, and to do this together with key stakeholders in the Swedish tourism industry. It is also about creating a platform for learning, collaboration, and cultural exchange. And during the year, we have dug into what a sustainable experience is and discussed it with people from academia, the private and the public sector. It was emphasized that it is important to offer tourism experiences that are sustainable in all dimensions, meaning then, of course, the social, economic, and environmental aspects. And during the year, we have also followed the internal and external anchoring of the sustainability initiative, including an internal workshop and a SWOT analysis of Sweden as a sustainable destination, as well as external workshops about the development of a sustainability promise. Together with a group of researchers from Gothenburg and Lund University, we have also provided input and academic perspectives on a pre-study developed in the project by Visit Sweden. A key concept that has been emphasized is transformative learning and a focus on tourists learning about sustainability during their tourism experience. Participation, co-creation, and inclusion are other relevant concepts in relation to the project and initiative. And these concepts can be tied to inclusion of local tourism development, and they can also be very much related to inclusion of different actors in the tourism industry in the development of a sustainable nation and destination. Publications of the things that we have presented here today are in the pipeline, so please check our updates on the website and our social media channels. Due to COVID-19, some of the field work that we had planned abroad has been postponed. We are, however, still planning to conduct our eye tracking study abroad, and we are also planning to engage in international collaborations and international comparisons in different cases of the project. And we will continue focusing on many of the cases and studies that you have heard of today. And listed on this slide, you can also see some examples of the upcoming research topics that we will engage in during the coming years. They include, for example, visiting friends and relatives tourism, networks among Chinese and Indian immigrants, participation and multiculturalism in guided tours, racial and ethnic representation in communication materials, and communication, representation, and experience of multicultural areas such as Hammarkullen in Gothenburg and Rosengård in Malmö. Thank you so much, and I will now hand back to Sayaka.
So on the screen, you see upcoming events where you can follow our work and the website information, the contact information. And each of us have our own social media channels, Twitter and LinkedIn. So please follow us. And with this, I would now like to open the floor for questions.